In the year 9 AD, the Roman Empire stood as a titan among civilizations, a colossus forged through centuries of relentless expansion, disciplined military power, and unshakable belief in its own destiny. From the deserts of Egypt to the forests of Gaul, Rome ruled over tens of millions, binding them together through an intricate web of roads, taxes, laws, and a promise of Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Its legions, symbols of imperial might, marched under the eagle standard with a reputation that echoed through every province and tribal boundary. The Senate still convened in marble halls, and Augustus, the first emperor, presided with a calm, calculating mind. Rome's godlike father, cloaked in power, diplomacy, and subtle paranoia. But peace in Rome's vocabulary often meant the quiet submission of the conquered. And nowhere was submission more uncertain than beyond the Rhine River, a shadowy frontier where Roman maps gave way to blank spaces filled with towering trees, fog-choked valleys, and the fierce independence of dozens of Germanic tribes. The Romans called this place Germania Magna, and though their generals had marched into its depths in the decades prior, it had never been fully tamed. The region lacked great cities or coinage. Its people favored tribal councils over kings and fought with raw, brutal instinct rather than formal lines and Latin commands. Yet Augustus, ever obsessed with the consolidation of borders, believed it could be Romanized, made legible, taxable, and loyal. To carry out this vision, Augustus appointed Publius Quinctilius Varus, a nobleman with experience in the East and a reputation for law and order. Varus had once ruled Syria with a firm hand and was known for bringing rebellious cities to heel. But Germania was not Syria. There were no great urban centers here, no client kings and no easy roads. Still, Varus approached his assignment with confidence. He brought with him 3 legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, supported by cavalry, auxiliaries, engineers, and thousands of non-combatants, merchants, slaves, families, and scribes. All told, nearly 20,000 souls followed Varus into the dark heart of the Germanic frontier. Among Varus's trusted circle was a man who seemed the very image of Roman assimilation, Arminius, son of the Cherusci chieftain Sigimerus. Arminius had been taken as a child hostage to Rome, a common practice used to ensure tribal loyalty, and had been raised within the empire's walls. He spoke fluent Latin, wore Roman armor, and had even earned equestrian rank for bravery in service to Rome. To Varus and many others, Arminius was the model of what Rome could achieve, a wild barbarian polished into a Roman officer. But beneath the polished surface, a storm was brewing. Arminius had not forgotten who he was. He had not forgotten the way Romans looked down on his people, the patronizing lectures about civilization, the taxes levied on free tribes, the humiliation of seeing elders forced to kneel before foreign magistrates. And he had not forgotten the stories passed to him in secret, of Roman betrayal, of innocent villages burned, of the day his own people were forced to send him away in chains to guarantee peace. His Roman education had taught him more than just Latin. It had taught him Rome's blind spots, its arrogance, its assumptions, its rigid belief that order was always superior to chaos. And now he would use that belief against them. By the autumn of 9 AD, Arminius was ready. For months, he had quietly united rival tribes, Cherusci, Bructeri, Marsi, Chatti, under a shared purpose, to drive the Romans out of Germania once and for all. It was not an easy alliance. Old blood feuds and pride made trust fragile. But Arminius had a weapon greater than any sword, his insider knowledge. He knew how the legions moved, how they camped, what they feared. And most importantly, he knew Varus. He knew the man's predictability, his desire for order, his blind trust in his civilized ally. When rumors of a minor tribal uprising reached Varus's ears in early September, Arminius seized the opportunity. He warned the governor that rebellion was brewing to the west and insisted that the legions march at once to suppress it. The request was strange, the timing, the terrain, the urgency, but Varus, perhaps eager to demonstrate control or bored with the slow pace of governance, agreed. The legions broke camp near the Weser River and began marching eastward, deeper into unfamiliar forest, dragging their supply wagons and standards behind them. The column stretched for miles, a vulnerable, winding serpent of iron and discipline, moving into a world that did not welcome them. The Teutoburg Forest was unlike any Roman landscape. Here, the trees grew close like whispering sentinels, blotting out the sun and muffling sound. Rain had turned the ground to mud, and the heavy wagons sank deep with every step. Progress slowed to a crawl. The forest was alive with movement, birds, insects, falling branches. But there was something else too. Shadows flickering too fast, the echo of something just beyond the trail. The soldiers muttered to one another. Veterans tightened their grips on Gladii and Pila. Officers barked orders to keep the ranks tight, but the terrain made standard formations impossible. The legionaries were used to fighting in open fields, not choking corridors of bramble and root. And still, Arminius rode ahead, scouting the trail, assuring Varus that they were close, that the rebellion was just beyond the next ridge, that all was under control. Then came the first sign, small, almost laughable, a broken cart axle. One of the supply wagons had sunk too deep, stuck fast in the mud. As engineers moved to extract it, the sky began to darken. Thunder rolled across the canopy, distant but growing. A sharp wind passed through the trees, carrying with it a scent of damp earth and something metallic. The Romans had no time to investigate. A second cart collapsed, its wheels shattered. Horses reared in panic. Something was wrong, and before anyone could shout a warning, a sound tore through the forest. Not thunder, not wind, but a chorus of savage howls, rising all at once like a wall of sound. The ambush erupted like a nightmare clawing its way into daylight. One moment, the Roman column pressed forward through the thick mud and dripping foliage of the Teutoburg Forest. The next, the woods came alive with bloodlust. Thunder cracked above as a sudden, violent downpour drenched the trail, turning the narrow road into a trap. Then from the trees came the roar of thousands of Germanic warriors. Not the disciplined cries of organized battle, but a primal, bone-rattling scream that shook even the most hardened veterans. The forest itself seemed to howl in rage. A living force turned against Rome. From above and on all sides, spears rained down like hail, hurled with brutal precision. Arrows hissed through the fog, striking shields, horses, and exposed throats. Legionaries struggled to raise their scuta, the heavy rectangular shields that had served them well on open fields. But here, amidst gnarled roots, steep ravines, and choking underbrush, those formations meant nothing. The Roman line broke almost instantly. Attempts to regroup failed as the terrain fractured every effort at cohesion. One cohort vanished into a marshy hollow, never to re-emerge. Another was caught on a narrow ridge and slaughtered to the last man, unable to retreat or fight back. It was not a battle. It was a systematic annihilation. From the shadows, painted warriors with shaggy hair and animal pelts emerged in waves. They knew the terrain intimately, striking with clubs, axes, and seax blades before melting back into the foliage. Roman officers tried to issue commands, but their voices were drowned out by the storm and chaos. Standards were lost in the mud, camp followers screamed, horses panicked and tore through the lines, trampling the wounded. In the chaos, friends were separated, supplies lost, and hope slowly bled into the earth. One soldier later recalled that it was like being swallowed by the forest, as if the trees themselves wanted vengeance. And the rain did not stop. For 3 days, the legions were hunted like animals. Every attempt at encampment failed. Wooden barricades fell to fire or sabotage, and each time the Romans tried to regroup, the attacks began anew. The Germans harassed them without rest. By day, they launched ambushes. By night, they whispered through the trees to keep the enemy awake and afraid. Hunger set in. Soaked to the bone, the legionaries suffered from cold, exhaustion, and despair. Roman discipline, once the empire's greatest weapon, disintegrated into survival instinct. Every glint of metal in the woods might be death. Every rustle in the leaves might be the end.